How would you act if you were Donald Trump and your home had just been raided and they took a bunch of documents and you were innocent? You hadn't done anything wrong. The documents that you had were nothing bad, nothing particularly damaging. How would you act if that was the truth? Probably not the way he's acting right now, but I'll let you decide. He has filed a lawsuit just yesterday asking a federal judge to appoint a special master to oversee a review of classified documents and other materials seized from Mar-a-Lago. It also asked the court to order the FBI to return any information taken from Trump's property that went beyond the scope of the search warrant. So let's be very clear. This lawsuit asks for this special master, which is a weird term, to be the one to review the documents, which means the FBI has to stop reviewing the documents. Immediately, they can no longer review what was taken. So let me ask you, is that more consistent with Donald Trump being innocent and there being nothing wrong with the documents? Or would it be the thing that you'd want to do if you believe that there was something damaging in there? Which do you think? So this would stop them from overseeing it. It would get this extra like a retired judge or someone like that to look over it. He'd get some documents back. Anyway, that's amazing, I think, and damning, but so much of his response has been. But there's also some great quotes here from this document that was put forth as part of the legal filing that in places seems like a lawyer probably wrote it, but there's other parts that definitely seem like Donald Trump had some involvement. Like there were questions that were asked of the DOJ, like, why did you raid my house? It literally said my house, which is not how a lawyer would word it, I don't think. It doesn't even seem like a lawyer reviewed it afterward. But anyway, let's give you a little bit of this. He says, to date, the government has failed to legitimize its historic decision to raid the home of a president who had been fully cooperative, except for the hundreds of documents that were classified that you have. So not only does that kind of legitimize it, but you can hardly say that you were being fully cooperative when you kept multiple boxes of classified materials. Like you got caught. But do you realize that we already know about that? Maybe you could have said that before we found out what they found, but that was a week ago at this point. How are you still claiming that you were fully cooperative? And of course, he says that it was illegal and unconstitutional without claiming why exactly that would be. Says he's taking all actions necessary to get the documents back, which is of course the most important thing, not the national security concerns. It's about him getting the documents again. He says we would have given to them without the necessity of the despicable raid of my home. See, what he is doing there is he is making this a hypothetical. I would have given you the documents. You didn't have to raid my home, except they already asked for the documents for months and months and months. You handed over a bunch of documents in January after you personally went through the documents. You didn't hand these back. Why are you engaging in pointless hypotheticals when we're 6 months past that? First of all, you never should have taken them. Or if you wanted them to be declassified, some of which you are not capable of declassifying, even if you went through the right process, you could have actually engaged in that process, couldn't you have? You chose not to do any of that. So don't waste our time with hypotheticals when you've already been caught out in multiple ways. Anyway,
yeah,
what do you think?
You know, it's been like what 2 weeks since this actually happened, since the FBI showed up at Mar-a-Lago, and the talking points have been so wild that it's a joke at this point, right? Every excuse that he could think of, he's thrown out there and it's been immediately debunked, and everybody keeps saying this is unprecedented that, the former president would have his private property raided by the FBI, but it's also very unprecedented to have a president who's done so much of what Donald Trump has done. This is just the most recent thing that we know about that he's done. And then, news organizations are being told not to speculate about different things going on because more information keeps coming out. Republican lawmakers are being told to kind of separate themselves from Donald Trump because we don't know what more is about to come out. So for example, whenever on Fox News, when they were saying, why didn't the Department of Justice just subpoena the documents? Why didn't they do that? And then it came out a couple of days later that they did. They asked him multiple times and he refused to turn it over. So whatever excuses that they keep trying to come up with, they keep getting debunked in a way that just makes Trump look even more guilty, even more just unhinged and less connected with the world and the way things are supposed to work.
Yeah, and it makes his defenders, as you just described, look ridiculous because they're continually trying to help him, even though he could, in theory, protect them from making stupid claims that will immediately be contradicted, but he doesn't care to. And while it makes them look ridiculous to us, of course, there's not that much damage that can be done because their audience isn't gonna care. They get their information all from them. But like imagine if Bernie Sanders was just constantly involved in scandals. And every day I came out and defended him. And then the next day it turned out that it was total BS and he knew it was. I'd like to think the audience would notice that pattern eventually. But on Fox, that's not the way it works. Anyway.
Well, because they never acknowledge that what he did was wrong. If you just never acknowledge it, then your audience never has to think about it. And over the course of several years, your audience just gets used to just defending something that is really indefensible by any other standards.
Yeah, 100%. Well, they cited in this legal filing, for some reason, a quote that we had read for you like a week ago. And it was, President Trump wants the Attorney General to know that he's been hearing from all over the country about the raid. If there was one word to describe their mood, it is angry. The heat is building up. The pressure is building up. Whatever I can do to take the heat down, to bring the pressure down, just let us know. So that's his threat. It's saying, hey, I know everybody is like crazy angry because of all the absolute BS that we're saying about the raid. And I know that when he put out that statement originally, the guy had already attacked the FBI headquarters in Cincinnati. There have been any number of death threats since then. If he wanted to take the heat down, the pressure down, he could do that instantly. He has chosen not to. He didn't do it after the attack on the FBI. He hasn't done it since then at all. And what do you know? The pressure continues to build because that's the entire point. So for instance, some people now, more people are going to Truth Social to hear more of this BS. They're fired up about this even more. Like the Dems might be enthusiastic about this or whatever, but they're not as ecstatic as the right is about this. Downloads of Trump's Truth Social spiked to nearly 88,000 in the week following the raid, which still seems kind of pathetically low, but that is a big increase for them. And according to John Lewis, an extremism researcher at George Washington University, it's not people saying, let's have a reasonable discussion about this, or let's see what happens. It's let's kill FBI agents. Yeah, and so he knows about the heat. He knows about the pressure. He could take it down, but why would he? The perception of him in his audience, his reputation or whatever. Like, do you know how many dead FBI agents it would take to cancel that out in his mind? More than there are FBI agents. He doesn't care. You back the blue metaphorically, not the actual people. You back the concept of police because you believe that they're there to uphold white supremacy. But if a cop gets in your way when you're trying to overthrow the results of an election, you beat that cop to death with a Trump flag. That's what you do. You care about it as a metaphor, not the actual people. The FBI are there to fulfill your will as president. But once they become inconvenient, then they can all be assassinated. It doesn't matter. That's the way that it actually works. And if you're on the right and you're watching this, these are inconvenient facts for you, I guess, but you gotta come to grips with them. You guys don't actually care about the military or the cops or the FBI. You care about them when they're cracking down on George Floyd protests, whatever, when they're murdering migrants at the border or something like that, when they're killing unarmed black people. But as soon as they get in the way of you and your political aspirations, then you guys are advocating for killing as many of them as possible. That's just the way that it works in America.
Yeah, and as far as like Donald Trump taking any kind of responsibility for this and maybe getting some of the heat off of these FBI agents who are just doing their jobs, who are actually just like cops doing their jobs, right? Let's just say that is what happened there. He doesn't have a conscience, right? He doesn't. I think people still expect too much from him in that respect. I think after years of him being Donald Trump, even before he was president, he was not a great person. We know that, right? We know that he was terrible for a long time before he even got to be president. And now we know how terrible he's been for the last, what year is this even? The last 7-8 years, right? We know that he's terrible. He doesn't have a conscience. He doesn't care about the things that he says. He doesn't care about consequences because he doesn't have to. He's never been made to care about any of this up until now. And some people dying somewhere else or some people getting death threats, that's not his problem because it's not affecting him directly. And I think people still underestimate how little he cares about other people. And I think we gotta stop.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.